One of the best things you can do to instantly improve your D&D sessions has nothing to do with new sourcebooks, nothing to do with painting minis, and nothing to do with memorizing obscure rules. You just need to do one thing: switch sides. Today, we're going to be talking about why everyone should at least try being both a player and a DM. So if you've only ever played, or if you've been behind the screen for what seems like forever, it might be time to try the other side of the table for a change. To me, the best D&D comes from groups where people have at least dipped their toes in both sides of the pool. And something I'm super excited about for future players right now is the fact that the upcoming starter set is actively encouraging groups to take turns DMing. Really love that. But even if you try it once and never ever do it again, that one experience will make you a stronger, more creative, and more collaborative player or DM. Okay, forever players, you're in the hot seat first. Why should you guys voluntarily take on more responsibility? Because it will level up your skills, friends! You'll understand mechanics better. It'll start to make a hell of a lot more sense why your DM is constantly asking you things like, if you're super sure you want to cast Fireball in this teeny tiny space. Things where you may have formerly felt slighted by your DM might suddenly become very understandable rulings. You'll get way better at recognizing story hooks. DMs drop little narrative breadcrumbs all of the time. Once you've prepped a session for yourself, these hooks are like big blinking neon signs. And literally one of my favorite parts of playing in groups that are mostly made up of other DMs is the fact that all of us will get very excited and absolutely will go touch what is obviously a very cursed object. They will play with everything you put in that toy box for them. You'll become a much stronger party collaborator. You'll be able to see when things start to drag or when something is taking way too long, or even when players are starting to rush through something where you can kind of tell the DM's signaling that something cool is still there to check out. And this will help you naturally get better at helping other players in the group to shine, balancing spotlight, and helping move things forward. And most importantly, even though you probably already really appreciated your DM, I guarantee you'll appreciate them a hell of a lot more. You'll see firsthand just how much effort really goes into this. And you'll stop asking questions like, why didn't the DM make blank more obvious? Because you'll finally realize that players never ever do what you're expecting them to do. Now let's flip it. Maybe put that thing down. Maybe even reverse it. Forever DMs, I see you. I know some of you are willing, but others significantly less so. But even if this is a lifestyle that you've chosen, let me tell you why playing might be exactly the thing that you need. Everyone needs a break, even from things that they, like 90% of the time, really actively enjoy doing. Getting to be a player for a change relieves some of that pressure, and it lets you reconnect with some of those joys you really only experience as a player. No initiative tracking, no juggling NPCs. You get to conserve that brain power and just embody one singular human being, or other being. Whatever, it's just you getting to experience what it's like to be a tiefling with major mommy issues. And not only do you get to feel more emotionally immersed, you also get to feel the joy of being surprised again. And now, if you have groups like mine, you'll probably agree that you're definitely surprised by your players on the regular. But that feeling is undeniably different as a player. There's something magical about walking into a scene and having no idea what's coming. And you deserve that magic too. While getting a break is definitely a benefit in its own right, there are some more practical reasons to step out from behind the screen too. Getting to be a player is such a great opportunity to learn from other DMs. Seeing how other DMs pace things or describe scenes or run encounters can have a huge impact on how you do things moving forward. Everyone has their own style and their own strengths and weaknesses, and it can be really awesome to see and experience that. One DM I had frequently had NPCs bicker with each other mid-session. And as someone who had previously read that you should never have NPCs talking to each other, and to be fair to the people that put that advice out, you definitely should not have NPCs monologuing to each other and your players sitting there silently. But as someone who is under this idea that this wasn't a good practice, I was amazed at how immersive it made the scene. Just these small quips and glimpses of deeper personality for the NPCs, it transformed how I chose to roleplay NPCs moving forward. Getting to be a player will also help you connect with how players think and how they experience the game. It can really help you get back in touch with what's fun. Cool moments, emotional arcs, clever problem solving. It's easy to lose sight of that when you're in lore architect mode or BattleBot Processor 2000 24/7. And at the end of the day, what makes a game fun is pretty simple. And getting to play helps you remember that and keep your focus on that. So if swapping roles is so amazing, Stephanie, why doesn't everyone already do it? This is probably the reason that pops up most for players, and guess what? You will! But everybody does. No one starts DMing and does it perfectly their first time. And I have a couple videos on this already that I'll link to below. But don't let this one stand in the way of doing something that could ultimately end up being so much fun for you. DMing doesn't have to become your whole entire life. Really, you can put as little or as much effort into prepping campaigns and sessions as you like. The most important thing is that the whole table's just having a good time. You don't need to become an expert miniature painter in order to do that. And I just did a whole series on how I prep campaigns from the starting idea to session prep. And while I do a little bit more prep when I'm starting the campaign, my session prep is like 20 minutes for each session that I run. So if you want to learn more about my system, I'll link to it below, but you don't have to let this take over your life. But if you're like me, you also might want it to. Plot twist, neither do most DMs. It's okay to have to look certain things up, and honestly, most rulings you make as a DM are a lot easier and a lot more straightforward than playing a caster. So if you've played a cleric, I promise you've got this. Guess what? Everybody has their preferences, and that's okay. Me? I don't like peanut butter and chocolate. Reese's cups are mid. Yeah, I said it. Does that mean they should no longer make them? Remember, just like some players might prefer the way the old DM did things, some players might prefer how you do things. None of this is personal, and it absolutely shouldn't stop you from giving this a go. So there are forever DMs by circumstance and forever DMs by choice. We're gonna talk about the latter first. What keeps someone from changing things up and getting in front of the screen? Letting someone else take over feels vulnerable. I think there are actually a lot of DMs who don't quite know how to relinquish control. Whether it's because they're afraid of someone else doing a better job than them, or because they have a hard time watching someone else struggle with something that comes easily to them, or even because they like the feeling of having other people depending on them. These are DMs that can't quite let go. But once they can do that, they can see that while scary, it's actually quite liberating too. I think this sounds like such a weird reason, but hear me out. DMing gives you distance. You're playing between 5 and 20 NPCs in a given session. You're not that attached. Playing, on the other hand, that requires emotional investment. Even if you're not the actory sort, there's always a little bit of us put into our characters, right? And for some DMs, those feelings of vulnerability that can develop can actually be very uncomfortable when they can't create that emotional distance. Some people can play and analyze, but others can't find their immersion and override the high-level thinking about the game that they're playing. This feeling of not being immersed can make playing seem not that fun to those who just can't help but try to remember what layer actions that elder brain might have. Now for the reason that most of us are familiar with, and also the one that I think is some BS. If my friends would not let me have a turn as a player after I've run a bunch of fun games for them, guess who would be on hold until I found a group that was a little bit more equitable? And Matt Colville actually just did a video on this idea of the unwilling forever DM, and it's significantly more poetic than I could ever be. So make sure to go check it out. But even if you want to keep your group going, even though you have friends who aren't very kind and won't share the workload, you still aren't totally stuck, but we'll get to that in just a second. So I've convinced you, you're ready to be a switch. One of the easiest ways to see what life is like on the other side is to run some one-shots. While nothing quite beats the feeling of getting to discover a character over the course of a campaign, or the feeling of the build-up to a really super cool boss battle, one-shots are still a great way to experience that other side of the table. They're low stakes and great for practice. Not to mention there's usually a plethora of both in-person and online opportunities for these, just in case your group isn't willing to budge. If you're unfamiliar with a West Marches campaign, I did a video a little while back that I'll link to below, but D&D's starter set is going to be a reimagining of Keep on the Borderlands, which is a really popular module for this sort of play. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to take turns being both a DM and a player while getting to stay in the same setting, and you can bring this mentality, this style of play, to so many other sorts of adventures afterwards. Because who knows, your group might end up loving taking turns. Yeah, you're allowed. Your current group doesn't own your TTRPG experience. There are tons of different meetup groups if you're in a major city. There's online forums, there's Discord channels. So if you want to see what life is like on the other side, there's really no excuse. Plus, if you get the super fun combo of new DM, new players, it can take a ton of extra stress off for both sides. Fun fact, I recruited my first group from my pottery class that I went to every week. Half of them had never played before, and it was so much fun. Bonus pro tip, the first time you're trying something, it can feel uncomfortable. That's natural. So don't make the mistake of having this happen and automatically assuming this means switching it up isn't for you. If you don't like something after 3 sessions, then you can definitely call it, but not after 1 awkward experience. Only 3. DMing made me a more generous player. Playing made me a more thoughtful DM. Trying both made me better at all of it. When we all take a turn on each side of the screen, the game becomes a lot more collaborative, more empathetic, and way more fun. Again, none of this is about perfection, it's about perspective. So, have you swapped roles before? What lessons did you learn? Bonus points if you tag a forever DM in the comments that needs a break, or a forever player of yours that you'd love to see behind the screen. I always feel like that's one of my callings, is to find all of my players who will DM. I will bake them. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out these videos next.